Join me today, we're going to be making kimchi. The one thing that, well, let me just show you. Let's take a walk outside because we're going to need to go and pick them anyway. Unfortunately, didn't really do as well as I would have liked with my cabbages. Not looking good. At least the chickens are going to eat well. I got 3 cabbages. I planted a whole bunch. If I could grow everything here that I'm using, that would be amazing, but it's not practical. We're going to get rid of the stalk here. So you're going to cut off quite a bit of the stem there until it comes through there. This is going to be quite woody, isn't it? But I'm still going to do it. Then just give it a cut a little way in. And then pull it open. This is really not going to look as pretty as the others. But hey, still going to do it. These are still quite dirty. Quite a bit of mud and stuff in there. It's going to be an interesting kimchi. You don't need to be too specific with the amount of salt you're using, honestly. Just don't go overboard. You're going to be rinsing a lot of this off later anyway. So pure sea salt. This is the same process if you follow any of my chili fermentations, using 100% sea salt, kosher salt, pickling salt, that sort of thing. Try not to use iodized salt. It's not the end of the world if that's all you've got, but I mean, sea salt isn't exactly expensive, so definitely a preference there. They do need to be a little bit wet, just so when you are putting the salt on that it kind of sticks. And we've got little bugs, as my grandmother would say. Protein! The joys of growing your own stuff. The salt is going to draw the moisture out of these. It's going to soften them up a little bit, and it's also going to, well, brine them and start that whole fermentation process. Let's talk a little bit about this. So kimchi is a fermented food. It's not as fermented. Well, I mean, listen, you can ferment this for as long as you like, but I have tried fermenting this the same way I would do a sauerkraut. It's just not nice. It comes quite fizzy, and it's not really too tasty. This here, it's a very mild fermentation. You can kind of choose how fermented you want it to be. Unlike something like sauerkraut, which this is very similar to sauerkraut. In fact, this process, if you've made sauerkraut, what I'm doing right now is pretty similar to what you're doing when you start off with your sauerkraut. You're putting salt inside that cabbage, and it's going to start breaking down. It's going to be pulling out moisture, and it's going to start brining itself. Basically every half hour for about 2 hours you want to be turning these things over. So this really does look so sad in comparison to these gorgeous cabbages. We should start seeing liquid coming through, so the salt is pulling the liquid out. You can see that, and that's going to be the water that's been pulled out of these cabbages. So all we're going to do is just flip them over. This is going to be a lot easier than what I'm doing with the rest of these, because they're all very tightly bunched up. So if you're doing this with smaller batches, it's a lot easier to just get in there, turn things over. One thing I do want to say here with the salt, you don't have to be too specific with how much you're using. All I will say is don't use too little. Make sure that you're using a decent amount. You can't really overdo it, or you can overdo it as you can with anything, but definitely go with a little bit too much rather than too little. It just makes sure that everything's going to be kept nice and safe. While we wait for the cabbages, we are going to start prepping the rest of the vegetables and other ingredients here. strictly speaking, there isn't one type of chili that is a gochugaru. You know, each family out in Korea will have their own chili that they'll use. This is a bucket of plain water. Give it a good rinse. That's going to get the salt off. It's also going to clean off some of the other rubbish that was on there because it was fresh out the garden. And we do this twice, and that's more down to tradition. Well, this water is filthy, so yeah, it's probably a good idea to be doing it twice. Okay, one more rinse. I'm going to try a little bit of this cabbage, see how that tastes. Flavor's good. Yeah, I think we'll be doing all right with that. So the process that we're going to follow here is exactly the same for both batches that I'm making here, but obviously it's just going to be a little bit easier with the nicer cabbages. Ugh, putting gloves on wet hands is not fun. Yeah, I'm still trying to just get out as much moisture as I can because I don't want it getting into here. While that is dripping out, let's talk a little bit about the containers we're going to use. So I was fortunate enough to get hold of a traditional ongi. I was so chuffed to be able to get it. So this here is a traditional ongi. You might recognize it. It looks a little bit similar to what you'd use. Let me get that. What you'd use for sauerkraut. So here's my sauerkraut crock. And it's very similar. And honestly, you could probably do it just fine in here as well. The ongi doesn't have the moat. So the sauerkraut crock has a moat where you put water in. So it's basically an airlock. The ongi doesn't really have that. It's just literally a lid over the top. So I'd love to get a massive one. I'd love to get one that over the winter time I could actually leave it outside. That's traditionally what they do in Korea. They'll actually bury it just so the lid is just above the ground. And then they'll have kimchi pretty much year round. Now, there are other ways to do it. You can use plain old Tupperware. That'll do the job just fine. Doesn't even have to be airtight. Like I said, yeah, with the ongi, that's not airtight at all. It's not even acting as an airlock, really. But try and get a good quality one. Make sure it's BPA free. And this definitely is. So I've got these here. I'll be doing this batch inside one of these. Then if you want to go a step above, for the price, to do kimchi in this doesn't really make a ton of sense. I wouldn't really recommend it. However, if you are doing other fermentations, then this is definitely something to consider. So this here, same sort of size, is about it's £8 for 2 or 3 of these. Whereas this here is about £25 for 1. However, it has got this cool little thing in here that actually helps to keep things below the surface. Again, I didn't find that really to be too much of a concern with kimchi, but for other fermentations or doing pickles, it's very, very handy. And it's actually a really nice little system. I had great success with this. So I did make kimchi in this last year and I will be using it again today. But yeah, there's your option. They come in various sizes. So there's another one a bit smaller. I think this is about 2 liters, maybe 3 liters. I think the other one is 4.5. Same sort of concept. This thing goes on top and it kind of is airtight. And does a fantastic job for your kimchi. I've got a whole bunch of them, but I wouldn't rush out to buy that if all you were doing with it is to make kimchi. Obviously the ongi, it's nice for traditional reasons. If you are fermenting other things, then consider one of these. And I'll leave links down below for them if you're doing a brine fermentation with chilies. These are fantastic. Holds the chilies underneath the brine, and they're lovely containers. But just wish they weren't so expensive. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Put it inside your paste, and then all you're doing is you're going to go through and slather it on, and then pick it up, fold it in on itself, make a little parcel. Can't help myself, got to try it a little bit. So good. Close it up and leave it out in room temperature. We have 1 tub of kimchi. Okay, let's do the better looking kimchi now. So same as before, we're just going to layer this in, make sure that there's a good layer on every little bit of cabbage. Get that all in there. So something else you need to do here as well, obviously we made that other slit. At this point you can pull it apart and got yourself little smaller pieces, quarters of cabbage. You're just going to make a little pouch like that and get that inside your pot. Depending on how old your cabbage is, you might want to remove this little hard bit, but you can remove that little bit there. Most of the time I don't actually do it, especially when they're really small young ones like this, but you can if you want. Let me show you where we are, and then I need to carry this on and we'll take a look at everything at the end. But if we take a look in there, we can see how we've layered it all up. We can see it on that camera there. And we're just going to keep on doing this, pushing it down as compact as we can get it. And then we'll just continue with the other containers. It's been about 24 hours now, and it's time to check on our kimchi. We've got our one in the ongi here. I haven't actually opened up any of this, so hopefully it's gone okay. Pretty confident it has. And we'll see what it's meant to look like at this stage. So at this stage, you should be seeing some bubbles coming up. And let's see, definitely can see around the sides. Oh, it smells so good. But yeah, there's a few little bubbles starting up, and that'll develop more as time goes on. So I may leave this for a little bit longer, but then I'm going to be putting that inside the fridge to slow down that fermentation process. Oh, again, smells amazing. So I can definitely see some bubbles forming, but to be honest, it's pretty cold inside my studio right now, and that's where I've been storing them. If you want this to speed up a little bit, then you want to get into somewhere a little bit warmer, but that's smelling still amazing. Okay, let's take a look at the underdog. This is my own cabbage. Let's see how that one's doing. So you can definitely see the bubbles forming when you push down on this. And that's still smelling good. Delicious. It's such a mix of flavors going on. If you've never had kimchi before, you're missing out. I may recommend that you go and buy yourself a small jar of kimchi from maybe a decent Korean grocer. just to know what the tastes are like, so you're not too confused when you make your own. But honestly, you're going to get addicted to this. If you like any sort of fermented food, this is spot on. Often we'll use it as a meal just like this, a bit of rice and kimchi, and that's an instant snack. Sorry, I'm having some more. It is lunchtime. So good. One of the big reasons I love kimchi so much is because it is so versatile. This is a meal in and of itself, but also if you just want to use it as a bit of a spice or a flavor for another meal, it works great. So what I often do is I'll take some chicken thighs, chop them up in small pieces, fry them up, chop in some kimchi, have that on top of rice, and perfect meal. There's no other spicing, nothing else to do, just like that, and it tastes incredible. In terms of shelf life, after 24 hours of the initial fermentation, it's ready now to store in the fridge. If you like your things a little bit tangier, a little bit more fermented, then let it go for a bit longer, up to about 48 hours. Any more than that, you're going to go into a weird territory. Anyway, it's not unsafe, it's not to my taste. But after that 24 hours, put it inside the fridge and you're going to have fresh kimchi for at least a year. So for me, it doesn't really last that long. I did keep some inside my ongi before I cleaned it, before I started this video yesterday. I had some in my ongi that I'd started last year. So it's a full year and it was still tasty. It was still safe. And yeah, I ended up having some of that before the video for some inspiration. So yeah, shelf life. These things are very safe, so just go ahead, stick in the fridge, and you're going to have some lovely kimchi. Hopefully you have enough space. Thankfully, I have a fridge that I've removed all the beers from it, and we now have kimchi in there. So that's where these are all going. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you give this a try, and until the next video, stay spicy.